Hello students. This video we will go over elements of chapter um, 4, the issues of business ethics in an international environment. And there's some strong theories that we will cover at the end that help us understand various possible solutions and possible ethical dilemmas that we face, especially when we are dealing with people of different cultures, different languages, different political, economic, legal situations and processes in their countries. Ethics is never a clear science, even within one's own country or one's own place of work. Even when we get outside of one's country, the problems, the dilemmas are magnified. So ethics, there's a lot of material at the beginning that is more or less something that can be quickly read over. Starts off quite interestingly enough with the most corrupt industries throughout the world, as listed there: extraction, oil and gas, construction, transportation, and IT. Then it goes into some perhaps reasons why those are the four most corrupt industries, and a lot of it has to deal with the value of the work done in those industries, the time pressure, as well as government or political involvement. Seems to be a recurring theme in some of those industries. Goes into extraction, what it is, construction. Talks about Montreal, which interestingly enough, Quebec, the province of Quebec, and Montreal, it's one of its cities, has been under fire for corruption, not acting ethically, taking bribes or kickbacks, or so-called gifts. There's various articles you can find. Here's one. The Charbonneau Commission finds corruption widespread in the Quebec construction industry. So just an example close to home of how corrupt and unethical things have been, perhaps hopefully no longer, but can be. Just information here to read. Just understanding those are the four most corrupt industries, and that may show up on multiple choice part of the exam. And of course, if you're in your country analysis in your first assignment and even into the case report, it may be noteworthy to see if you can find corruption numbers. We are manufacturing a product in those countries as part of our first assignment. So you just might want to be aware of what kind of corruption history has existed in that country. Let's go into here, ethics and the environments. I should have changed that. It should be 6 or 5. Let's just quickly change that. There we go, 5 environments. I read through that, and then I went to the book again because I can't find 6 environments unless I'm misreading something. But there's various environments or circumstances that can affect ethical considerations. Political environment, that's why we need to have a really good understanding of the political environment, including the economic system. Social cultural environment, the technological environment has affected and can have that effect on ethics. The economic environment, and with that is the significant need for corporations to remain economically competitive. which does influence their objectives and has consequences for consumer priorities and how they may behave ethically. And with the economic environment, you got the competitive environment, especially when we open up our doors to international business and we as Canadian organizations go elsewhere, it just becomes more competitive, and ethics may be the item that is least protected when we are trying to make that dollar or survive as a business. And of course, when you study the political, economic, legal systems, those systems may determine by itself, and you got the cultural, language, religious issues within a country, they all shape how we behave ethically as people and how we behave ethically as in corporations, and it kind of shapes a whole ethical environment. So definitely something to consider. Let's go on here. What are some more important information here? As I've said, there's been intense pressure, more so in the last few years, to be competitive, to remain competitive. Interestingly enough, as it says in the notes on that slide, mistakes, and we see that a lot today, more so than ever, because we have kind of immediate feedback in terms of a mistake. We don't have to wait for the news agency to publish it. Basically, any mistake, it goes on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and it just goes. It spreads like the COVID virus kind of thing, making it possible, as it says there, for millions of people to know about a company's violation, even before all the facts are known. And that can have significant, serious consequences. So always tell individuals never do anything in public where there's a camera around, because that's going to stay with you for a long, long time if it's captured. And of course, businesses have to concern themselves with that same process. And we'll talk about this at the end. It does create some practices within businesses to kind of hide some of the information, because they know that once it's out, it's going to spread like wildfire. Or they try to be proactive, and they try to address the problem before anyone knows about it as a problem, and they come out looking much better. But there is a risk still. So social media has had a significant effect on how businesses behave ethically. Even there's theories out there right now about how the response to COVID is social media and government trying to stay one step ahead of what the latest thought or rumor or feeling is on social media, and just how impossible that is. So it does affect global news. Social media does affect how companies can behave ethically or unethically. Some influences, we talk about WikiLeaks. This is straight from the chapter. Some terminology, business ethics, personal ethics, right or wrong to govern the conduct of a person or conduct of business people. And then we can talk about various ethical issues. As I've said, and as you'll be studying when you do your assignment, is that first point there, what's considered normal practice in one culture may be considered unethical in others because of their political, economic, legal differences, cultural, language, and religious differences all shape how we behave ethically and what we define as being unethical, or what we define as being ethical. So managers in that multinational firm, directors definitely need to be particularly sensitive to those differences and be able to choose the ethical action. Now, it becomes a problem when choosing the ethical action in as a manager in a multinational corporation when you are somewhere else may be considered unethical back home, or vice versa? And how do you, as a manager, make that decision? How does that company do something that's considered ethical in one part of the world, but back home definitely unethical? And what happens if your shareholders find out about that? Are they going to be upset that you are violating their sense of ethics, where where you are, it's whatever foreign country you're in, they may consider that perfectly ethical. So that's where dilemmas come up. Ethical issues with employment practices, 12-hour workdays, extremely low pay, failure to protect workers against toxic chemicals, may be common in some developing nations. And the big question is, does this mean that it's okay for a multinational to tolerate such working conditions or to condone it? Condone it is would be defined as you don't want it to happen, but you are kind of grudgingly allowing it to occur. Each country has different work days, work week. What's considered low pay in one country may be considered quite a lot higher in other countries. So even how we pay workers is based on our sense of ethics and what is perhaps right or wrong. And in the past, there has been an exam question about the payment of workers based on different ethical theories, and what rate would you actually decide on based on the different ethical strategies or theories that we'll look at. More so later. Perceptions of corrupt politicians in Canada. There have been cases in the past where various ministers have gone through the process of trying to defend themselves, saying that what they did was not unethical, what they did was not being corrupt, is just a misunderstanding. So there's lots of situations like that, and not sure exactly who is right or what the process is, but each country goes through this. It's almost become very political in terms of we want to slander someone's perhaps name, or we want to make some type of other political agenda. In some cases, it's absolute misuse of public funds. Yeah, that's just interesting trivia that just shows up on a slide. Not a big fan of him, or was not a big fan of him, and he appeared in a movie. Yay. So it can affect our trade. We are an exporting nation, so of course we want those foreign nations to buy our product, and of course their perceptions of how we behave as a nation and citizens can affect how the likelihood of them continuing to trade with us. So some ethical issues. Yeah, we can. That is something you can go over. Let's go into slide 19. Environmental pollution, corruption. Just some ways that, of course, Canada has fought against, or actually for, in terms of trying to protect the actual environment or come up with corruption, anti-corruption kind of legislation or regulations. Various nations have formed or have signed off on anti-corruption policies.